Everybody. I am Baron Strife with Final Fantasy Theory, and I am leaving work. But I thought, hey, why not? Let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Let me turn that down. While I'm driving, I will not be looking at the screen because that would be illegal and dangerous. So, um, I'll look and see if there's comments and stuff while I'm driving. Or not while I'm driving, when I get stopped at like a stoplight or something. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk about Final Fantasy VII, the remake, and the original. And we're going to talk about it because I've been seeing a lot of hate for the remake, and I just don't get it because it's such a great game. But let's talk about it while I drive. Again, will not be paying attention to anything on the screen there, but I will check when like I said, when I stop. So let's talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Why do people hate on it? A lot of original Final Fantasy VII players are hating on it. Now, I myself am an OG Final Fantasy VII player. It was actually the first Final Fantasy VII game I played, and I loved it as a kid. It's one of my favorite games. It will always be one of my favorite games. But so many OG players hate the remake. Now, anyone who is, if you've watched my stuff, you know that I love Final Fantasy VII remake as much as I do the original. Because I believe the remake actually holds true to the original quite well. It does deter from it on certain things that are key. Like the whole thing with fate. The fate thing is weird. It's different. And that was a bit, I wasn't happy about that. But for me, the one thing that truly irritated me about the game, and this was just really the only thing, was the fact that during the Genova escapes and kills everyone stuff, that there's no blood anywhere. And it's like, are you kidding me? This was like one of the best parts of the game in the original. You saw the full-on massacre of what Genova and Sephiroth did. And then they completely were like, I'm just gonna not do that in this one because we don't want to have to pay for an M rating. But then they realized their mistake, and you see in the after the Yuffie episode, they bring blood back because they knew they made a mistake. They knew they screwed up. So for me, that was the big issue. So let's talk about what are the things that people have said they hate about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Well, that comes down to... Sorry, I thought that was a cop. It was not. But anyway, the things that they end up hating about it, a lot of people weren't happy that it wasn't, oh my god, what is it called? Turn-based. Turn-based combat. A lot of people were not happy about it not being turn-based combat. And for people who are all about turn-based combat, I have to say, you're gonna have to get over it. Turn-based combat made sense at the time it was used, because you have to remember, in these old games, the battle screen and the main game screen were two completely different things. The battle screen was generally much better rendered. It had better detail and stuff like that. Not so much in the original first one. That one was kind of it wasn't perfect by any means. But like in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up through it, they take you to these much better backgrounds. 7 is a great example because the actual what you see is on the main screen, in the world is very 3D based and whatnot, and it's kind of annoying in terms of aesthetic beauty. But then you get to the battle screen, and you're fully formed Cloud and company. With their awesome magic, awesome summons, with the great cinematics. They're actually physically running up and attacking. They're not just stepping 2 steps forward and doing, stuff like that. And that's what makes it really, really good for the turn-based combat at the time. But now, in a modern setting, it's just not necessary. For me, Kingdom Hearts is what established the need to get away from turn-based combat. Because in Kingdom Hearts, you had a party of 3 people. And with those 3 people, what were you doing? You were all doing your own little thing. You could command them. You could command your party. Acted on their own. What they did, and you this in Final Fantasy 12 too. They did the same thing. Although Kingdom Hearts did a much better job with it. Final Fantasy 12 was, that was a nightmare. But for me, Kingdom Hearts really is what made me want to see a Final Fantasy game where I get to take command of the hero, and that's one thing that I really like about the Kingdom Hearts series, and that's one thing. I have no signal apparently. I do have T. It's probably why T-Mobile is total garbage. An intersection. Don't know how to drive at intersections. I swear to God. But what was I saying? I completely. And I'm back. Again, you do Cloud, Barret, etc. Except for Naki. But I digress. So yeah, I know a lot of people want the turn-based combat back, and I get it, nostalgia. But I think here's the bad thing about nostalgia. It makes you misremember things as being greater than they were. Oh, I'm live again. That's great. So, note to self, go live after the back roads, which I'm still on the back roads. But nostalgia makes you misremember things, okay? So Final Fantasy VII, the original, is a phenomenal game. I think it is the standard in gaming. But people who hate on the remake now that played the original Final Fantasy VII seem to have forgotten all the flaws that were in the original 7. And there were a lot. Like, I'm gonna be real with you. There was a lot of flaws in the original 7. I personally did not like the beginning of Final Fantasy. Like, the opening to Final Fantasy 7, 100% amazing. But then once you fall down into the sector slums with Aeris, it gets really crappy and boring. And then you gotta go through, what is it called? Whatever the fuck it's called. With Market Street, or whatever it's called. Like, you had to go through that. And I hated everything about that. 100%. Hated everything about it. Still to this day, when I replay 7, I hate going through that part. Now, once you get to the assault on the pillar, it's great again, and then, from there on, it's just better and better and better. But remember Disc 2 of Final Fantasy 7, okay? The beginning part of that, of the second disc is so bad. Like, everything with the Icicle Inn and the snowboarding, which if you suck at snowboarding in a game from the 90s, you end up flying off to God knows where. And then getting the Alexander summoning while you're there, already pissed off from the crappiness of the snowboarding and everything involved in it. Most people just skipped getting Alexander because it didn't matter at that point. You just wanted to get out of there. Anyway, everything about that sucks. It's horrible. And I guarantee you, no one, not a single fan is going to say, you know what part of Final Fantasy VII I loved? The snowboarding and the mountain. No one. Why? Because it was crap. It was by far the worst part of the game. Great, stupid phone. Terrible part of the game. God awful. And, Yeah, yeah, just bad. And that's the thing. Like no one acknowledged. Like people forget that stuff. And there's other things like the submarine mini game. Final Fantasy VII did a lot of mini games. Okay, and I think they were the first one to do mini games because I don't think six did. I don't think they did. I don't think they were technologically able to. I can't remember. If anyone watching knows, let me know because I can't remember. I haven't played six in like a year. But there were so many mini games in seven that were just unnecessary and dumb. So, like the people who were like Final Fantasy VII, the original, it is perfection. It's like yes, it's perfection in the sense that it is the greatest JRPG, arguably the greatest JRPG. And yes, I'm going to use JRPG. I don't see it as a curse word. Like some people are like JRPG, that's a slur. Like it's not a slur, okay? Because it's true. Because a true role-playing game, when you think of a role-playing game, because let's be honest, role-playing game, you think of Dungeons and Dragons. That's like the original RPG role-playing game. Okay, so in a game like Dungeons and Dragons, you're not assuming the role of a character. You are that character. You created that character. You take that character is your identity. When you play a Final Fantasy game, or like Kingdom Hearts or Legend of Dragoon, Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger, etc. You know what I mean. You are assuming the identity of a character that has been created, and then you are putting yourself into their emotions, their feelings, and whatnot. So yes, the term JRPG fits because it's not really a true RPG in that regard. I mean, it is a class of its own. It's not a subclass. It's a class of its own. But I'm getting off topic. So other things that people who criticize the remake have said is actually the Cloud cross-dressing part. I've seen people say that, like, oh my god, this is so horrible. I can't believe they did this. And it's like, did you play the original? You do know Cloud cross-dressed in the original, right? And depending on how dedicated you were, things got extensive. I mean, I got the thong, I got the perfume, I got the best dress, I got the tiara. I went all out. I made Cloud sexy to make sure he could lure Corneo. And yeah. So I mean, it's the same thing. You're doing the same thing. The only real difference is now you're doing some dancing on a stage, and Cloud is apparently a fantastic dancer. So I wonder if he learned that from Zach. I don't know. But, some people hate it. And yeah, and there's some people who think that, it's an agenda kind of thing. It's like, no, it's not an agenda. You have to think, look at what happened in Remake, okay? Cloud was visibly awkward and disturbed in the awkward sense. Like, not disturbed like he was freaked out, but he was like disturbed like his brain was like on the fritz because he just did not know what was happening, did not know what was going on. And that's very true to his character from the original. Okay? Like, when Cloud had to dress up as a girl in the original, he was just like, what? No way, not doing this, and whatnot. And he just did not know how to act once he was in the dress. So it's very true to it's very true to the original. They just added a little flair to it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Obviously the big thing I think people dislike is the concept of the whisper, or not whispers, that's not what they're called. Or is that what they're called? What the hell are they called? The Arbiters of Fate, but that's not what they're called. That's the final boss. Whatever they're called. Maybe it is whispers. I don't remember. But anyway, the Arbiter, the fate thingies, I think is what people really detest. And I get it. I get it. It is frustrating. That is stupid. But I wouldn't say it is such a massive diversion from the original. Because you have to remember, in the original, the way they talked about the planet, they talked about it as if it was a living thing that made its own choices. Bugenhagen is the one who's, because they talked about how Eris was going to summon Holy. That was what she was doing. Sephiroth was blocking her prayer, but Holy was trying to escape. But then ultimately, Bugenhagen said, the planet is the one who has to decide. The planet will decide what Holy does. Will Holy wipe out humanity? Will it wipe out Meteor? Will it wipe out Sephiroth? No one knew. That was up for the planet to decide. And then later Final Fantasy games kind of went further. They created Gaia, the goddess of the planet, and it's up to you if you like that or not. I personally don't care too much. There's nothing wrong with putting in a god or goddess, but if it doesn't have a plot relevance, it seems unnecessary. I'd rather just have the planet be a sentient being, kind of thing. Because, the concept of like the weapons, for example, being created by the planet to protect itself, like that's awesome. When you bring in the god or goddess, and it's like, oh, okay, that's cool, a god or goddess made this. But then again, if the god or goddess was so powerful, why didn't she just take on Genova? Why did she have to create the weapons? So it's that's why I think it's kind of unnecessary to have the to have Gaia. But anyway, with the Fates, I understand why people are upset. Especially because it seems like they're retconning a lot of the original. So Wedge is alive for reasons. Biggs probably alive. Jesse is the only one who might be dead, but I forget if it's in the remake or the Yuffie episode. But you see her armor lying down in a room. So I don't know if Jesse's dead or if she is alive and she's just badly injured, kind of like Biggs and Wedge are. So that does upset me that they retconned all of that. And it's not that it's like, oh yeah, I want them to die. It's, I like faithfulness to the original, and when you depart so heavily, it creates issues. And we're going into the Star Trek remake conundrum right now, where you're just completely retconning the original and creating a separate timeline. Let's not do that, because right now it looks like Zack is coming back. We have no idea. Hopefully we'll find out. And don't get me wrong, I love Zack, 100% love Zack, but he's dead. He needs to stay dead, period. As awesome as he is, he needs to stay dead. I do apologize for the crappy video quality. I think it's because it's getting dark, but it's just insane to me what they're doing with that. So I understand people who are frustrated. I really do. But I think you have to look past that frustration of the things that are so radically different and give it a chance, because a lot of the remake, I would say, is 90% faithful to the original. Now if it was a complete alteration, that's one thing. I would get it. Just be, say screw it. But it is mostly faithful. So I look forward to part 2 coming out. I do hope they don't screw it up. I am curious to do an open, because when you look at Final Fantasy 15, the first open world Final Fantasy game, there were many issues, because the game world was small. I'm gonna be honest, it was small. Like when you really think about it, like there was like 7 towns in the whole game. Why? So with Final Fantasy 7, think about where they went after Midgar. They went to Calm. From Calm, they went to Chocobo Farm. From the Chocobo Farm, they went into the swamp to the materia cave to Fort Condor, Costa del Sol. From Costa del Sol, they went to North Coral, Gold Saucer. Then you went to Cosmo Canyon, Gungaga, Nibelheim, etc. So I am curious as to see what is going to happen in part 2, because I am worried about, because they said it was going to be open world, so I'm worried that they're going to screw up all of that. So they're either going to go linear open world, kind of like how 13 was open world, but it wasn't. Or there's not going to be as much into after Midgar as there was in the original. And hell, they might just completely depart from the original. We have no idea, you know? And that's the thing that's kind of worrying. Because I loved the remake, and I want to love this part 2 as well. So I am nervous, and I think that's what a lot of OG fans are. I think they're just afraid with, or what they fell in love with, just changing completely. And, you know, I get it. I mean, I imagine if they recreated the first Final Fantasy and, you know, they changed it the way they did the Final Fantasy 7 in a remake, I imagine a lot of the Final Fantasy 1 original players who just absolutely love it would be upset. Whereas I would not be upset, because I personally have started playing the first one and I do not like it. At all, I'm gonna be honest. And I know that's probably not a popular opinion, but I do not like the original, the first one. I'm gonna play it, and I'm gonna beat it. I don't even remember where I'm at. I'm in some random cave. I don't know. But that's why I don't like it. Is it doesn't really tell you anything. You're just you just blink into existence one day, and it's like, hey. I mean, even the backstory they've included in the Pixel remaster is just like, you don't know why you're holding this crystal, or even where it came from. You just have it. And like, it's like the Pixel remaster went full on meta with how insane it is. But anyway, back to 7. You know, I look back at 7, and I think the one thing that I honestly am looking forward to the most is Cosmo Canyon, because I loved the boss in Cosmo Canyon. What is he? The G tribal chief guy. I can't remember his name now. It's like Gi Natak or something like that. And I look forward to that. That is like the boss that I am looking forward to fighting, because you have to admit, even if you're not a fan of the remake, they did an exceptional job on those bosses. Like when you're playing as Aerith and Barrett and Nanaki, and you're escaping the Shinra building, and you fight that machine with the stupid hyper beam cannon thing. Like, that was a phenomenal boss fight. I mean, holy hard. Like, first time I played, I think I died twice. But, you know, great boss fight. Really epic stuff. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for with these other bosses that were so cool. Although, you know, one big thing would be really funny. Fighting icicles in the remake. Just like in the original. I don't know if any of y'all ever watched Raptoons, but they make fun of that. And he's like, Barrett shoots at the icicle and misses. He's like, damn, I missed. And Cloud's like, how do you miss a stationary icicle? And then Nanaki is like, why are we even fighting crystals? Why is it alive? Well, it was so much easier when it was just us against the Shinra. And I'm just like, I love it. So, I think that would be funny. It'd be super hilarious. Yeah. But, I mean, there's just a lot. There's a lot I'm looking forward to with the remake. There's a lot I'm nervous on, and I saw that there was some posts, but I cannot look because I'm driving and I don't want to die. But, I appreciate the commenting. If I get a stoplight, I promise I will look this time. But Yeah, and I've heard a few people say they want 8 remake, but I love 8. There's just so much about it that's good. 9, I'm not the biggest fan of. I don't hate it. Like, I like 9, but to me, there's just so many issues with 9, and I really don't want to get into it. That's like a conversation for another day kind of thing. And again, it's not that 9 is bad. It's not. It's a good game. It's actually the first Final Fantasy I beat without the Game Shark. Now, I have gone back and beaten all of the other games now without cheat codes and whatnot. But when I was a kid and didn't know the F I was doing, I needed the Game Shark. And Final Fantasy 9 was the first one I beat without it. And so, there's that. Which is saying something, because Necron came out of nowhere. I know when my brother first played him, and then he thought he won because he beat Kuja, and then Necron just popped out of existence with his Yoda stealing lines. I'm convinced that Necron is the dark side of Yoda that just escaped. Just saying. But, what else about Final Fantasy VII? Did y'all know? I don't know if y'all know this, but Final Fantasy VII, Sephiroth gets stronger based on what you have at the end. So if you get Knights of the Round, so if you own Knights of the Round at the end of the game, Sephiroth is automatically stronger. If you use Knights of the Round against Genova Synthesis, Sephiroth gets stronger. If you use Knights of the Round against Bizarro Sephiroth, Saber Sephiroth gets stronger. It's crazy. And I think he gets an HP boost as well if you have Bahamut Zero. And I'm just like, that is so cheap, but also kind of cool that they did that. Because go back and play Final Fantasy VII. Do not get Knights of the Round. While it is challenging to still fight Sephiroth, he has a lot less HP than if you have Knights of the Round. I was able to beat him just with W summoning Bahamut Zero and using like Shadow Flare and other spells. And it's strange. It's weird. It's pretty cool though. Honestly, it's kind of like in Final Fantasy VIII when you overload yourself with like all the best magic to junction yourself to make you basically immortal. 100 Ultima, 100 Full Life, 100 Shell, all that just combined together makes you basically immortal magically. You get healed from every magical attack. And then, Ultimisha's like, yeah, I don't like that. So she starts blasting away your magic just randomly. And you have to hope none of your elemental combination gets blasted. Not that it matters, because in her final form, she doesn't really use elemental magic that I remember. I know there's supposed to be Final Fantasy VII Remake talk, and I somehow got onto Final Fantasy VIII. Not sure how that happened, but, yeah. I'm trying to think what else there is to say about Final Fantasy VII Remake. So the one thing I will say that I think they could have done better with the remake, the side quests thing that they did wasn't very imaginative, because it was limited to the area, so you didn't really get to explore as much of Midgar as you wanted. Like, I'll be honest, there's a lot of times when I was playing, I would just stop and look around and just kind of take in everything, because it was so gorgeous to look at Midgar. And I kind of wish we'd been able to explore more of it, and it's disappointing that we didn't. We got to explore a lot, like when you go with Jesse to take on the base, which that was a fun part of the game. I actually really liked that a lot. I enjoyed that that was one alteration from the original that I really liked, was going with Jesse and Biggs and Wedge, because I'm glad that they decided to flesh out those characters, because there was no reason not to. Because in the original, you're supposed to feel sad that they died, and it's like, I didn't care. I mean, I didn't know anything about Biggs or Wedge or Jesse. There was like no development for him. But it was also the original, so they were kind of, you had limitations back then, so it's no surprise. I mean, how many Final Fantasies have random characters that you don't care about? Again, if you watch Rabtoons, they make fun of this fact. Like Final Fantasy V, the wolf who comes into the Karnak fire crystal, and he's like, "Get out! Don't worry about me." And then it's like everyone's gone and he blows up, and it's like, was that sacrifice supposed to be sad? Like, I didn't know him. I don't care. I mean, I like having the emotional connection to characters because it makes it that much more impactful when something happens. So, like, she's the best magic user, and she's just the best for summoning and stuff. But when I was a kid, I never used her because I thought she was weak. I wanted physical brute strength and high HP, so I never used her. So her death to me wasn't very impactful. In fact, I hated her because you had to use her in the Temple of Ancients, and because I didn't use her, she sucked. Now it's impactful because I use her. But that's the one thing that I think the remake's done well, is they're really trying to establish a connection for you as the player with Aerith, however you want to call her. And I think they're doing well. I do think that and this is a debate for many Final Fantasy VII fans. I personally don't think Cloud loved Aerith. In the sense that his feelings for her were genuine. I think it was more, Zack talked about her when Cloud was in his comatose state, and he mixed everything he said and how he felt about her with his memories, like he did everything else with Zack's character. And I think that's where I personally think Cloud's feelings for Aerith came from. I could be wrong. Feel free to disagree with me. That's just my opinion and my take. But like right now, they're kind of establishing that Cloud does genuinely love Aerith. Like, I don't know if any of you've seen it in the remake, but there's a part when you're deciding to go rescue Aerith. I think it depends on how much affection you've built up with certain characters, or you had to do certain things. I'm not sure, but that there's like the night before you decide to go for the rescue, you have the opportunity to you end up going out of Aerith's house into her garden, and either Tifa will be there or Aerith will be there. And if Aerith is there, you did it right. And that's when she's like, don't fall in love with me, blah blah blah. And Cloud says, do I get a say in this? So that they're trying to establish that Cloud genuinely loves her, and I think he does for sure love her, in the sense that he just met her, she's been impactful in his life, blah blah blah. But I also think his emotional love for her comes from Zack. What is your thoughts on the matter? I don't believe Cloud genuinely loves Tifa. I'm gonna be real. There's nothing that really indicates that, other than the fact that they had sex, before they decided to go fight Sephiroth in the original. And don't tell me they didn't have sex. They totally had sex. If you thought the world was ending, they did it. They totally banged. Right there. That's why Tifa was so bashful. She's like, "Oh my God, Yuffie saw me riding Cloud." But yeah. I don't know. Not really sure what else to talk about as far as Final Fantasy VII, other than hopes. I am curious as to see where Part 2 remake is going to end. Because the first one ended right after they left Midgar, which is worth of Disc 1 in the original, maybe 1/3. So I am super curious as to where Part 2 is going to end. Because, Disc 2 for us ended... When did it end? It was right after the Midgar assault, wasn't it? I can't remember. I cannot remember. I think it was after the Midgar assault, when you go back and defeat defeat Weapon, Hojo, and all. I can't remember. Or maybe it was like right before that. I can't remember. If you remember, by all means, type it in the comments. But so I don't see Part 2 remake going that far. I don't know how they're gonna do it in only 3 parts like they claim. It definitely makes me worried in that regard because I love Final Fantasy VII, and I thought the Part 1 remake was great, but if they fuck up Part 2, that's going to be a problem because you can't have a good beginning and then a bad middle, because if you have a bad middle, it doesn't matter if the finale, the final part, is good, because, you know, like, you can't start off high, drop down, and then go back up. That's just gonna ruin a team. That trilogy's a prime example. Started out bad with the first one, then you play the second one. It's actually pretty good, other than the capturing Pokemon part. And then I don't know what happened in the third one. It was very religious, like you became Jesus. Seriously, he became a savior. And then they mixed it with Norse mythology. That was weird. But you know what? That is a discussion for another time, to be completely honest. Because this is about Final Fantasy VII. And, yeah, Final Fantasy VII. Such a great game. It really is. And, you know, I never got Typhon, whatever he is, the little gremlin summon. The only way I can get him is with Master Summon. I mean, I've gone to the Ancient Forest and gotten him before, but I just always hated going to the Ancient Forest. And at that point in the game, when you can get to it, I just wanted to get to Sephiroth, because I already had Knights of the Round at that point. I try and get Knights of the Round before I go to Midgar for the second time, when you gotta go stop Hojo. Just because it's fun to have Knights of the Round going into Midgar. Like, if you summon Knights of the Round against Diamond Weapon, he does not get a turn. Knights of the Round will wipe out Diamond Weapon in one hit. Crazy. But yeah. Yeah. I bet you though, the remake, when you go into go stop Hojo in Midgar before they fire the Mako cannon at Sephiroth, I bet you that's gonna be awesome. Especially when you see Rufus get blown up. Oh, but I am curious to see what they're gonna do with Rufus in the remake, because if y'all remember, Rufus was able to see the Whispers, those fate arbiters of fate. He was able to see them. So it makes me wonder, what are they gonna do? You know, is Rufus gonna have some kind of connection to the planet or fate? You know, what's up? Because that's gonna be kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. Potentially, if they don't screw it up. I hope they don't screw it up, because I personally like Rufus. He's actually a villain I really like a lot. He's one of those villains you love to hate. Like, even in Advent Children, like, Rufus really, while Rufus, sorry about that, but if you remember in Advent Children, Rufus wasn't fully altruistic. You know, ultimately what he was doing wasn't really for the planet and whatnot. And I think you find out more of that in Dirge of Cerberus. You know, that like Rufus is actually kind of behind a lot of these like organizations and whatnot, because he's trying to reclaim his power again. And so, but I still love Rufus. I still think he's badass. But yeah, so I am sorry for the disconnect, but I am almost home, so I'm probably gonna cut this live stream out anyway. We talked about Final Fantasy VII. Sorry I did not get to comment on your... Well, you know what? I'm gonna wait till I actually get back so I can look at the comments, so I can actually respond to them while I'm on the live stream. So still got another like 12 minutes before I home, but there's no stoplights between now and my house. So I will fill the space, I guess, with the time. Talking to myself. So, upcoming stuff that's going to be happening. I am editing the podcast right now. And I'm going to be recording episode 2 of the podcast Monday, actually. And obviously, I got to put out episode 1 before I can put out episode 2. But episode 1, it's about, what made you a gamer? What video game made you a gamer? Because for everyone, that's something different. And I'm not going to get into what video game made me a gamer because that's what that podcast is for. So keep an eye out for that because it is coming. I'm thinking of new theories as well. I'm trying to come up with some new ones. I have one in the works. I'm trying to formulate it still. Like I know what I want to work on, and it has to do with Final Fantasy 3. Because I haven't done that one yet, but I'm still working on some things with it before I start making the video for it. So that's coming as well. Chapter 2 of my Final Fantasy 7 Origins is coming as well. I'm still just going over Chapter 2 and making sure everything's all right. And again, I'm going to record and get that ready as soon as well. I got a lot going on. And then I have a job, so, there's that. And I'm also trying to, market my fantasy book. I have a lot of things going on. So, probably too much. But, that's what happens when you're... But, it's something that I love doing it. It's just, when you work an 8-hour job and then you come home and you got, stuff to do, right now, because we're in the growing season, so I'm trying to, plant stuff and all that, and it's just, so much stuff is happening that it bogs me down. But like I said, I'm working on getting the stuff out and whatnot. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this live stream while I was driving. I think it's something I'm going to try and do a little bit more often, to talk about different things, video games. I might, just a general conversation. Like tomorrow I might do one, and I might talk about Final Fantasy 8 or something, or this doesn't even have to be Final Fantasy related. It could be anything. Talk about Chrono Cross, Chrono Trigger, Legend of Dragoon. There's a great game, probably one of my favorites. Legend of Dragoon. If you have not played it, I fully recommend it. Great game. You can get it on the PS5 if you have the PS Plus. If you have the PS Plus subscription, you can download it for free. I didn't pay anything for it. Or if you still got a PS1 and you can get a copy. I'm just saying, I recommend it. Great game. Voice acting, not so much, but still a good game. Although I love Rose, okay? Her move, when she comes in, she's like, whip smack. It's just great. It's phenomenal. Love it so much. But there's a lot of it. But it was a great game, great story, great mythos. I mean, it was mind blowing. And the whole out it from the tree and all these various things. Chrono Trigger, great game as well. I love it. I played Chrono Cross first because I'm younger. But when I got the opportunity, I played Chrono Trigger, and I was amazed. It was such a good game. First off, time travel. I mean, hello. It's always the best. But not even just the time travel. Lavos, all of it was cool. A lot of the characters were quirky. Like Rob, his theme song, let me tell you, I love that theme song. It's such a good theme song. But there's just a lot with Chrono Trigger that's really cool. Especially in the final fight against Lavos, when you fight the shell, you beat the shell, you go inside the shell, and then you fight this alien computer-looking thingy that has nipple lasers. So that's fun. Nothing beats nipple lasers. But yeah, you know, I enjoy Chrono Trigger. One thing I will say, I am disappointed that Chrono Cross, you didn't need to play Chrono Trigger to play Chrono Cross, which is somewhat, because you call it a sequel, but yet you don't really need to have played the original to play Chrono Cross, because the final boss in Chrono Cross isn't truly Lavos. It's the descendants of the reptites from Chrono Trigger. So it's kind of ridiculous. But it also doesn't make sense. Like I was talking to my brother about this, and there's just a glaring plot hole with Chrono Cross. So Fate separates the Time Devourer into 7 incarnations, right? And they all have a relic, and that's what keeps the Garden of Eden, or not the Garden, whatever it's called, Eden, locked up, and they can't get in there, and they can't do anything to stop Fate. Well, if Fate's whole duty was to prevent the Time Devourer from being resurrected, and it had that, canon of God thing going on, that it could just smite anything, why not just wipe out one of the dragons? Like, kill off the weakest one, probably the green dragon. You could have just wiped the green dragon out, or any of them, and then they could never have formed into the Time Devourer. Boom, the world is safe. But instead, it goes random path that ultimately leads in its own destruction because, reasons. But, I digress. But yeah. Yeah. Chrono Trigger, I think, would benefit from a remake. I think it'd be good. Because Chrono Trigger, you really could do an action-adventure game like they do now with, like they did with the remake of 7, where you're going around and slashing. You could really do that. Worlds. Because, you walk around and you're adventuring. Because, in Chrono Trigger, you engaged everything on the field as you were walking through the maps. So, it works, I think. And it would be really cool to see Luminaire in 4K glory. Some of that high definition magic. But I am almost back, and I can comment on the comments. I saw the one comment about Chrono Trigger, that's why we got into the conversation. That's just because I happened to be looking when I saw it. So let me just see as soon as I stop and everything. Get into park where it's safe. All right, what do we got? All right. Story, new timeline. Yeah, it will be cool to see a new timeline, but it'd be also kind of frustrating. I hope we don't have set teams in the remake part 2. That would be kind of annoying. Like during certain episodes, that'd be fine, but I only played Spiral once, and I did not beat it. So, but anyway, guys, it has been almost an hour of this long drive from my job and talking about video games. It was great. So I will see you all later. I don't know when the next live stream like this will be, but like I said, keep an eye out for all of our stuff that's coming out. Turn the music down. The next theory video, the podcast, chapter 2 for my Final Fantasy 7 origin story. All that's coming out soon, I promise. I have not forgotten. I'm not, the channel is still well and alive. But thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one.